Alright, so let's create this material iPhone in the system. The transaction to create a material is MM01 and of course MM02 to change it and MM03 to display it. So hit enter. The first thing that it's going to ask you is of course the material name. Materials typically are alphanumeric. It can be numeric if you want. If you use the standard material type of finished goods or FERT, F-E-R-T, you end up with an alphanumeric material name. Now why do I talk about the material type here? And what's the significance of the material type? In the customer master, we have talked about the customer account group. So let me go here to the blackboard. So when we talked about the customer or the customer master, the key that controlled how that customer master behaved is driven by customer account group. When you talk about materials, the key or the controlling parameter for materials is what's called as the material type. I'm not going to talk about material types because for an SD consultant, we don't bother too much about material types. The reason being, we don't configure it ever. The MM consultant configures it and we just happen to use them. But we need to know the basic material types that are used. FERT is finished product. So all finished products use this material type. DIEN is service. There's not a tangible goods. If it's service, DIEN is used. There are a couple more that are important, but the most important point that you should understand is each of these material types dictate the way that material behaves. And the most important piece of this behavior is based on the views that this material type allows. If you take FERT and take a material, say iPhone Model 5 and industry sector is retail, it's a material, you can change it and click OK. These are the views that I was talking about. When I mean a view, it's similar to the view in the customer master. In customer master, we talked about three views: general view, sales view, company code view. Just three views. But we have seen more than three departments use the material master. Remember? There was the purchasing department. There was the sales department. There was the finance department. There is the marketing department. There is quality, warehouse, so on and so forth. So many different departments. And not all materials require all different departments. If you want to give me an example, I can give the example of service. A service is not stored, right? A service is performed, it's not stored. So what happens in case of service? You don't need an MRP department, for example, because it's not manufactured, or you don't need a warehouse department, for example, because they are not stored. But for a finished product, you might need these departments. And which departments or views are enabled for a particular material is based on the material type. If you want to create a spa service like a massage therapy, you'd be creating using a different material type, say DIEN. But in this case, we are creating an iPhone, which is a finished goods. So we're going to stick with FERT. Hit OK. And you got the basic data 1. And you got sales data. You got MRP data. Now I'm picking and choosing some views only. Why? Because these are the only views that you'll be needing at this point. And in order to do what might be the next question. So in order to create an order, deliver it, bill it, receive the money, these are the minimum departments that are required. Basic data, sales data, MRP1, and accounting 1. If necessary, the storage 1. Now we are not going to use the warehouse management, so we are not going to pick that. If you do some third-party purchases, you might be needing the purchasing department, but we are not going to need that for regular cases. So these are the bare minimum required views for any SD consultant. So select them and click OK. Depending on the views that you have selected, it will ask you to identify the respective departments. You have selected the MRP view, which is the view that's related to manufacturing. So it's saying, okay, you want to maintain view for which plant? I know that I'm going to maintain it for 1200 or 1000, any plant that's associated with sales org 1000. So we are doing this for Germany. German sales org, German storage location, sorry, this one is 1000. And German distribution channel, German plant, and MRP profile is not required. And click OK. And we can start with creating our material master. The first field after you give the material number is of course the material name. So this is iPhone version 5. It could be black, for example. I don't know, I'm just making it up. And it has such and such a screen or whatever description you want to give. And how is it sold? Is it sold in liters? Is it sold in gallons? Of course not. It's sold as a piece. So it's piece by piece. Material group. Remember this field when we talked about Apple changing its product line or Best Buy changing its product line? A material group, we're going to discuss about this in the next chapter called material classification or grouping, is a way to group materials. Why we group them is something we're going to learn about. But this is a way to group a material, and you can create your own material groups by just going and clicking on this new button. I am going to just select a material group. Say, what should I do? Electronics. And then we have old material number. What's an old material number? Let's say your company is migrating from some Oracle or some other technology based ERP into SAP. So all along they've been selling the same materials. The material over there could be called IP500 for iPhone 500. In SAP they want to call it as iPhone -5. Well, it's good. They have a more meaningful name now. But sometimes it's nice to refer to the old name in SAP because all along they've been using those old names. Now all of a sudden, SAP comes over a Saturday or a Sunday and the old ERP is gone. People still remember the name IP500, but this is a new name. So in order for users to kind of have a reference to the older name, when you create this material iPhone 5, the old material number can be IP500. Where do we put that? We put that here. So if a user wants to search for a material by old material number, they can just use that term. I'll tell you how you can use that when we go search or change the material master. And the same classification that was used in the older system can be applied here. This is called external material group. Okay, the division is not mandatory, so you don't need it. We'll talk more about divisions when we come to enterprise structure. The lab office is used when you have a research facility and so on. And then product hierarchy, cross-plant, material status, and so on are not necessary at this point. We don't need to worry too much about them. We are going to talk about product hierarchy in a different chapter, but we're not going to cover all the fields anyway. We're going to focus on some of the fields, and I want you to stay focused on those fields only. Don't worry about all the different fields. There are hundreds of them. You don't really want to bother about all of them. Okay, and then next we have gross weight. What is gross weight? Gross weight is the gross weight of a product along with its packaging. Let's say it's 0.5 kilo or pounds. Net weight, the way you do 0.5 is a little weird. So let's say 1 kilo. And the net weight is a little less than that, right? So 0.2 kilos. The volume of the product can also be mentioned, like it's so many cubic centimeters or so many cubic meters, depending on the nature of the product. So you can just put your number there and you select a volume unit. It's cubic meter or deciliter or whatever. Next, we have size and dimensions. All these things like size, dimension, volume, gross weight, net weight can be used in logistics, especially if you are doing your own handling. It's very effective when you have the net weight, gross weight, and volume for every material, so that you can estimate freight very easily. Okay, I'm going to sell you 1,000 iPods. How much is it going to cost you for the freight? It's going to cost you so many pounds or so many dollars, because we're going to charge you freight by pound, and the total weight of 1,000 iPods or iPhones is going to be so many kilos or pounds. If you're not going to do your own shipments, maybe FedEx is doing it for you, it might not be all that relevant. But still, it's good from an estimation perspective, because right at the time of creating a sales order, you need to give your customer an estimate of the freight that you're going to charge the customer. How would you know the freight when FedEx is not there yet in the picture, but you know the weight? And that's going to help the company in estimating the freight. And then we have EAN and UPC codes. EAN stands for European Article Number, and UPC stands for Universal Product Code. These are all universally recognized product codes that the company needs to go and register with, and any shop, any customer can just go scan it and find out what that product is. Now this EAN or UPC codes are typically used in the consumer industry. iPhone is a good example. But for a large equipment, say a generator for a power company, I don't think EAN or UPC codes are required, because they are not consumer oriented. And before I move to the different options here or different views, let me just quickly go to the additional data. In additional data, you can maintain the different units of measure, and you can maintain the descriptions in different languages. For example, you can maintain the description in German. Maybe in Germany, it's called iPhone 5 black with a double K. I don't know, I'm just making it up. Maybe in Italy, it's called something else. And that's what needs to be printed on sales orders, invoices, and deliveries as the description. So you can maintain different languages for the same material. And of course, you have so many different things that you can do here, but let's not get distracted. Let's get back to the main data and click OK. Now we are moving on to the next view that has been selected. In this view, we have a sales unit of measure. This is very interesting. There are different units of measure: base units of measure, sales units of measure, purchasing units of measure, transportation units of measure, what are they? iPhone is probably not a good example when you want to talk about different units of measure. A better example probably is Coke. Coke is manufactured in, let's say, gallons, and it can be sold in different units of measure. It can be sold in cans, 6-pack, fridge pack, or it can be sold in 1.5 gallons, and so on. See, these are all sales units of measures, and this is the manufacturing unit. And Coke, for example, if it's purchasing, which it might not, it might be purchasing in pallets. And each pallet is so many gallons of Coke. So this is the purchasing unit. And when you maintain different units, you have to maintain the conversion between them, meaning one purchasing unit of pallet is equal to how many gallons? 1000 gallons. So we are maintaining a conversion between a purchasing unit and a manufacturing unit. And of course, you have to maintain the conversion between the manufacturing unit and the different sales units, and purchasing units. That way, the whole process of creating orders and receiving them and manufacturing the same goods is kind of transparent in terms of how many you want or how many you want to manufacture, because there is a clear conversion between the different units of measure. So like I said, just in case if you want to maintain a different unit of measure, I don't know, a box, you will have to maintain the respective conversion. Now we'll talk about conversion as soon as we hit enter. And next is the delivering plant. Remember the example of iPhone changing the delivering plant from San Francisco to Los Angeles. This is the plan. This is the field. So if you want to change it, right now I've set the delivering plant to 1200. If you want to change it to 1000, that's fine. You can change it. The next field is the distribution chain status. So this is the discontinued thing I was talking about. Are you going to discontinue it? Yeah, sure. If you want to discontinue it from a certain time, you can do it here. But we're going to do it in the change mode. And this is the tax classification. You can either tax it or not tax it, depending on the material. And we have talked about tax classification in the customer master. Remember? A customer can be taxable or a customer need not be taxable. That would depend on the nature of the business transaction, nature of the customer, resale certificates, so on and so forth. In the case of a material, some materials are not taxable. For example, service in the US is not taxable. So if it's a service, yeah, the tax classification is 0. Another example is a research material, right? Like some genetic material or whatever. If the government wants to promote it, then they don't tax it. So you can have that. So it depends on the nature of the material and the nature of the transaction. So for now, let's just put the tax classification as 1, which means it's taxable. And of course, we have minimum order quantity and minimum delivery quantity. Minimum order quantity is the minimum quantity of goods that the customer can order. Now, in the case of an apple, You have two types of sales. Apple sells to end consumers like you and me in single units. So you can go to apple.com, buy one iPhone. And the price you're going to get is whatever the unit price is. Now, Apple also sells to companies like Singular or AT&T or T-Mobile and so on. And when they sell it to them, they have a different price and a different agreement altogether. And Singular cannot just order one iPhone, right? He has to order a certain minimum amount. In that case, you can set a minimum order quantity here. Now remember, it's not based on the customer group or the type of customer. It applies to everybody. So if you have a minimum order quantity regulation, it could be either by law or it could be either by principle that applies to everybody, every customer. You can specify it here. Minimum order quantity is 10 and same with minimum delivery quantity. Right? Hit enter. And this is where the system is saying one box is equal to how many pieces? Because a box could have n number of pieces. That would depend on what kind of box your company has, right? So one box of iPhone could have like 10 pieces of iPhone. Remember our Coke example? One fridge pack of or box of Coke is going to have 12 pieces of Coke or 10 pieces of Coke. And any different kind of unit of measure that you use to define the material has to have the corresponding conversions declared. Okay, moving on. You hit enter to move on always. This is very, very important. You can just go and click on that respective tab, or you can just go and go to this little drop down and click on the tabs. But it's always better to hit enter because you have already selected the tabs and it will go in that order without getting confused. All right. This view is not all that important at this point, but in the next chapter, when we talk about product hierarchy or material groups, we'll know more about why this tab is there. So just skip this tab. And in this tab, there are two important fields called transportation group and loading group. Again, we are not going to focus on any of these because we'll know the significance of these fields when we do shipping, deliveries, and shipping point determination and so on. For now, you can just ignore them and just put them standard values. Hit enter. And then we have MRP. Again, we're not going to bother too much about MRP. Just put ND, which means no planning. Hit OK. And storage conditions, just hit OK. Doesn't matter what's going on there. Finally, we have accounting. In accounting, there are two fields that are important. The first is what is called as a valuation class. Now, for a particular material type, this set of valuation classes is fixed. And that's done by the finance department. So you don't have to worry too much. Just select the right valuation class. And also, anyway, it's the finance department that takes care of this view. So we don't have to bother too much. Price control is also a property of the material that's set by the finance department. But we have to understand this a little bit. There are two types of price control. One is standard, next is moving average. We have to understand what is the difference between a standard and moving average. Let me go back to my slide and we'll see what is standard versus moving average. This is used in purchasing to evaluate a material. And when you look at the word price, don't confuse it with the sales price. It's the purchasing price. So what is valuation? If I have a home and I'm selling everything, if I want to sell everything and I want to estimate how much property I have, so I'll start counting everything. I'll start counting the value of the house. I'll start counting the inventory in my house. What kind of inventory do I have? I have a freezer. I have some golf clubs. I have some clothing. Let's say I'm just selling everything and leaving town and going to, God knows, Australia. Right? So I kind of car and everything. I kind of evaluate everything. And what do I evaluate it at? At the price that it currently can be sold at, or at the price that I have acquired it. Now, a car depreciates with time, so I can't really value it at the price that I have acquired it at. So I can only evaluate it at the price that I can sell it at. Right now, I can sell this car for 20K. Okay, all right. My inventory car value is 20K. But imagine a factory. A factory has inventory. So if you want to manufacture iPhone, there is a panel, the LCD panel, and there's a case, and there's some audio circuitry. There's so many different things. So a panel costs $12. A case costs $10. And there are how many panels? There are, let's say, 100,000 panels in inventory, because you're going to make so many iPhones anyway. And there are 100,000 cases. How do I identify whether I have... So how do I know that my panel costs $12 a piece? That has to be maintained in the material master. If I know that the value of an iPhone panel, that the acquired cost of it is $12 because I manufacture it, you can just put it in the material master, like I said here, using standard price, and say the price is $12. But if you acquire a panel from 3 different vendors, let's say vendor 1 is selling it at $10, vendor 2 is selling it at $8, vendor 3 is selling it at $13. Now what's the cost price of this panel? It's a weighted average of all the 3 different prices. And do I have to do it every time? No. SAP spares us that problem and just says set it to moving average, and I'll automatically take care of the cost price. So it does a moving average of all these and sets the price to some value. Those are the 2 types of valuation that you do in the material. These are the only types of valuation. So for now, I'm just going to stick with iPhone 200 is my cost price, and I'm going to set it to standard price. And click OK. Now it says we are done with all the views. Last data screen reached. You're about to exit. Okay. Click yes, and your material iPhone-5 is saved.